apply some color on this bad boy. Now, when we apply color to longer nails, I recommend you start on the end of the nail, so towards the free edge. Paint the whole tip of the nail first. It's going to make everything glide better. And then when you're also going to use any bead of product or anything you have on your brush is going to be much easier to work with if you use it on the end of the nail first. And then you work your way up towards the cuticle area. So just paint a nice wet layer first. Concentrate mainly on the precision of the application first. And then you can always even out the color before it goes in the lamp. Okay? So I'm just painting like that. And then when I get to the cuticle area, what I do is I get behind the product a little bit and see how like I can kind of push some product in front of my brush, almost like you can see like a little line of product. I'm going to work that up. And as I get closer to the cuticle area, I kind of slow down and I do tip my brush up even more. Okay, so if this was this way, what I do is I push some product in front of my brush like this, helps to create a nice kind of round shape. And then when I get up to the cuticle area, I just slowly push it up there and then I pull away. If you give the gel a second, it'll actually float into place and then you can walk it down the sides and then same thing on this side. And then you can smooth it out over the whole entire nail, like so. Okay, so I can get really close to the cuticle area, nice even application on both sides without touching the skin. If you do touch the skin, don't worry, you can use either a clean brush or you can also use a manicure brush like this one. If you have just like a French, this is like one of those French manicure brushes, just put a teeny bit of alcohol on here and you can go around and clean up around the cuticle area if you accidentally do touch the skin, but don't stress if you do, okay? Now the second coat of color is usually much easier because if you already have it nicely applied around the cuticle area, your second coat, you can be a little bit faster and you can also try and get just a teeny bit closer to the skin if you want to. So again, just paint the whole nail, mainly starting towards like the middle or the end of the nail. I don't usually worry about capping the end of the nail because it's artificial. Nothing's gonna happen to it. And also, I usually end up finish filing it a little bit to get that sharp shape, so it ends up taking the color off anyway. But I can get like really nice and close again. And usually on the second coat of color, it's a little bit easier to get closer to the skin without touching, but don't worry if you do a little bit. I'm gonna just show you guys how you can clean this up. Okay, so now I've got my color perfectly applied. Rather than use my finger to clean up the product, I do like to use a brush because I don't want to get gel on my skin. So just take a little bit of alcohol on your brush, dab off the excess so that you don't have too much. You just want it to be wet. And then what you can do is just with this, it's like a French manicure cleanup brush, just brush down the side and you can clean up any gel that you accidentally got on the skin. Okay, now that I have my two coats of color, I'm going to apply my top coat. Same thing with top coat, I like to apply it on the end of the nail first. Get the whole nail nice and coated on the end because it just makes everything slide and glide easier. And then I can do the top portion. Now that I have less product on my brush, I can do the top portion. Just helps keep control over the product. And like I said, a lot of times little drips and stuff will come down the brush as you're working. So if you're working on the tip of the nail, that's less of an issue than if you go right for the cuticle area. So paint the end of the nail first and then work your way up. And then I usually just keep kind of finessing it until I see like a nice glossy coating. There's no like little pieces of grit or anything on the nail. And I also like to make sure that the free edge looks really nice, like the overall shape looks good. So I do look at like the whole nail shape and just make sure that everything looks really nice. But you can already see with 2 coats of color and top coat, this nail is already starting to look really square. All right, so this top coat does not need to be cleaned. If your top coat does need to be cleaned, you can go ahead and do that. But you can see, like I was saying, how before I put color on, my nail looked kind of tapered. But now that I have 2 coats of color and top coat on, it looks like it's perfectly even all the way down the nail. Might be slightly tapered on the end, but it looks pretty dang good. And if you do notice any type of like bumps on the end of the nail that you do want to take off, you can absolutely just gently finish file the free edge just to make it super, super sharp looking. Because this is all artificial product, it doesn't matter that we break a seal. So you can see that I can just make that free edge really, really sharp if I want to do that, okay? But I've got color applied from one sidewall all the way to the other, nice and even, nice and shiny. And overall, my nail is not thick. It's about credit card thickness. You guys see that? So it's not thick. It's got a nice concentration of product here in the center, nice and smooth, nice and even, and just a really, really pretty pink nail, okay? So I hope you guys can practice this. Also, last step, if this were a client or even if you're done doing your nails, always apply cuticle oil at the end. It just really perfects everything. So apply some nice cuticle oil all the way around. I like to apply a little bit underneath as well. This is just my own cuticle oil, so I don't care if I'm getting dust in my bottle, okay? But I do like to apply cuticle oil underneath the fingernail as well. Let that soak in for a couple seconds. You can even do a hot towel if you're in a salon setting. Do a nice hot towel, let the oil soak in. And then I do like to kind of buff the oil in after it's had a chance to absorb. I like to kind of buff the nail a little bit with the oil on. And then you've got a nice, nice nail with re-moisturized skin. Everything looks really nice and pretty. All right, guys, so practice this. Practice full extension from start to finish, and in next week's video I'm going to show you guys how to do this in real time with all the steps included start to finish, because you've only been able to see bits and pieces up until this point. All right, see you guys next week. Bye.